when you focus solely on how your body looks, not everybody, but it's much more difficult to be proud of what you're doing when it's based on like subjectively, how do I look versus objective, oh, I've gotten stronger. Oh, my blood pressure has gone down. My cholesterol is improving. I can walk faster on the treadmill now. Here, look, I used to walk at a 2. Now I'm walking at a 4. It's like, these are clear, objective improvements that people really start to love what they're doing.
All right, let's kick off. Jordan, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. As a new father, I like to say I really appreciate time, and it's been a long time coming. So I'm really excited for this session, man.
Man, I'm stoked. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. I think a big thing for you and a big thing for a lot of your audience is all around the nutrition side of things. And then a really interesting part to begin is one of your quotes, which is no one ever got skinny from having one salad, and no one ever got fat from having one donut or one pizza. I've been saying that saying for so many years, and I didn't realize that it came from yourself. I swear to God, I've always said it whenever I've been dieting, whenever I've been trying to put on weight or anything, and I never knew it came back from you, which is huge. How much has it been like a revelation for you, like that realization throughout the years?
Yeah, I mean that I don't even remember the first time I said it to a client. I remember the first time I published it on social media probably was like 2014, 2015 or something. Um, but I mean, it's one of those things that we all logically know. Like logically we all get it. But for me, I think most of what like coaching is, especially with clients, is it's a lot less about knowledge. Obviously, knowledge is important, but it's less about knowledge and more just about accountability and and managing emotions. Because so
Mhm.
much of what happens throughout the coaching process with clients is emotional. Weight is emotional in and of itself, and I think a lot of times it's very easy to let our emotions cloud our logic. So when someone, God forbid, has a donut and they have an emotional response thinking they ruined all their progress, it's sort of the coach's job to come in and be like, listen, you had a salad earlier that day. Like, did you get skinny from that salad? No. Okay, so
Mhm.
why the fuck do you think the donut's all of a sudden going to make you fat? It's one of those things. Yes, logically we get it, but when you put it as bluntly as that, I think it can be very helpful.
Of course, I think it's because you're looking back at all of your progress, and then it's kind of like clouded by this one event. And it's very true for like life and business as well. Like we take one bad step and we think that the whole thing is messed up. I think that kind of comes down as well in terms of like when we're looking at food profiles. So as you famously say, like there's no good or bad food, but it's been situated in such a way that we have to stay away from all of this, and we can only lean towards a certain bracket of food, which is not helpful at all for, let's say, the average mother or whoever it is that's trying to get fit and healthy.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, listen, like in terms of like good or bad foods, like what makes a food bad, we'll call it, right?
Mhm.
Like whenever I have this like what's bad, I mean, for some people a bad food would be carbs. For someone else a bad food would be like not organic. For someone else a
Mhm.
bad food would be like that it has gluten. For someone else a bad food would be it's not paleo. Like what for someone else a bad food is like it's high fat. For someone else a bad food is like there's too much sugar. What the fuck is bad, right? Like for who? And
Yeah.
for me, I think like we're too quick to look at an individual food and say it's bad, and not quick enough to look at how's your diet as a whole. Like
Mhm.
how's it looked over the last 30 days? How's it looked over the last 60 days? How's it looked over the last 90 days? Because on any given individual food, it's like it doesn't tell you anything about your diet. It doesn't tell you anything. It's if you can look at it over the 90-day window, you get a much greater idea of what your health status looks like based on a 90-day period as opposed to a single food. So for me, labeling a food as good or bad, one of the best ways that I've been able to phrase this is, for one person, saying no to the donut is progress, because that
Mhm.
person might be eating too many calories, have too many processed foods, too much like highly palatable stuff, and they need to lose weight. So for them to say no, it might be progress. For another person, saying yes to the donut without having fear or anxiety or worry that that donut is going to make them gain weight and ruin their health, that's progress. because now like they can have that donut and not let it ruin them. I think we live in a world now that more and more prioritizes mental health and understands that mental health is equally as important as other aspects of health. I don't think someone who is so scared of having a donut because they think it's a bad food can say they have a healthy relationship with food. If you can't go out and enjoy a slice of pizza at your daughter's birthday party because you're scared that pizza is a bad food, you do not have a healthy relationship with food. Your mental health is not healthy. So what aspect of health are we looking at? We're looking at it from a physiological perspective, psychological perspective, emotional perspective. There's so much more to food than just what's going on as soon as it hits your mouth, right? So
Of
to
course.
look at it as good or bad is very short-sighted.
And that's why it's so nuanced, even in our discussion, to go down like what particular part of it. And I think we are kind of in this world of like calories and macros as being like, I looked at them as like as metrics. Same with body weight. Like fundamentally, like I know you went through a mini cut and you went from 162 to 149. That was a metric to determine like not necessarily the success or failure, but just if you're going in the right direction. Same
Yeah.
with calories and macros, but it's been situated in such a way that that is the only determinant of success or failure. Whereas I have bodybuilders, so my background's in bodybuilding, and I know bodybuilders who are screwed mentally from that up and down cycle, up and down cycle. I know other people that are perfectly fine, but it's like we don't necessarily consider those different aspects. How do you find that in a coaching sense?
What do you mean from a coaching sense?
Like people that are getting too fixated on like macros and then macros and calories, and then not necessarily looking at the other aspects, the
Yeah.
mindset side of things, the all those other aspects.
Yeah, I mean it's especially in the bodybuilding world, man, it's real. It's a real fucking issue. Um
Mhm.
it's one of the reasons why as a coach, I try and push my clients. First and foremost, I don't work with bodybuilders, right? Like and not because like I don't like them, but because that's not my expertise. It's not my specialty.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck to do. Like I'm not writing bodybuilding programs. That's not my world. But I have had many ex bodybuilders and ex physique competitors come to me to help with their relationship with food because a lot of them get really fucked up. Um, and that's why I think one of the most important things you can do from a health perspective, mental health perspective, is put your focus on your performance. I think it's very easy when you're only focused on, well, how do I look? How do I look? How do I look? Every single thing you put in your mouth now goes to like, is this going to make me gain fat? Is this going to make me lose fat? Is this good for me? Is this bad for me? All based on what other people will think of your physique, which
Mhm.
in my mind is not a good life strategy to base everything you eat off of how will other people perceive my physique, right? Which is like, it's one of the difficult aspects of being a competitive bodybuilder because it's your sport, but you're going up on stage and your body is getting judged by complete strangers. And they're like, hey, we're going to give you a numerical score to tell you how good your body is compared to other people. It's like, that's a real mind fuck, bro. Like that's very difficult, which is why like when I work with clients everyday Joes and Janes, every regular people, I say, listen, your body is going to improve. You're going to gain more muscle. You're going to lose more fat. But how about we focus on what can you do? How about your push-ups? How about your deadlifts? How about your mile time? How about your flexibility?
Mhm.
Let's get real objective data on improving your performance. Because what I found is when people see like, hey, they're lifting more weight, they're able to run faster, they're able to do more chin-ups or more push-ups or get their first chin-up or push-up, they can do the splits, they can do a handstand. When they see that their actual body is capable of doing more for them, it changes everything in terms of their relationship with food and themselves.
That's awesome. I think when you break it down for like say the average person, it's a lot easier that way than looking at the North Star of your best bodybuilder, or for women as well, because they are probably looking at a lot of external factors a bit too much as well. They will look at other people in comparison. Do you get people to track a lot of their workouts? It's been a big proponent of my training, and especially recent years. But do you get them to track different aspects of training as well as their
Oh yeah.
lifestyle aspects?
Oh yeah. I mean, especially like for everybody, but especially for the people. And yeah, I guess some clarification. My population is just very general population.
Yeah.
There are people who like they don't want to be a pro bodybuilder. They want to be healthier and more fit, right? That's my population. And a lot of this population doesn't actually even like working out. They don't really enjoy it, right? It's like a lot of people in the fitness industry, they love to say, find the exercise you love, find the exercise you love. And it's a great idea, but I always know people haven't actually worked with the real general population when they say that, because if you work with someone who's 100 pounds, 150 pounds, 200 pounds overweight, odds are they're not going to like any fucking exercise. Like they're going
Yeah.
to hate it no matter what. And so for me, I don't say, hey, find what you love. Now I say, listen, you're going to choose your suffering here. You're either going to suffer through doing a workout you don't like, but then be healthier as a result of it, or you're not going to suffer during the workout, but you will suffer the negative health effects as a result of it. You get to choose, which is a blessing. What a blessing that you can choose which one you're going to do. But the reality is you're probably not going to like it no matter what. But what's been very cool as a coach is to see when these people do start going, they choose to suffer, and they choose, I'm going to put myself through this 45-minute workout 3 times a week, even though I hate every minute of it. I know it's the right thing to do. But then we focus on how many push-ups they can do, or we focus on how long they can walk on the treadmill, or we can focus on like their heart rate improving, or we can focus on any number of things. They start to like it because they're seeing results, because they're seeing, oh, wow, before I could only walk for 5 minutes. Now I can walk for 10 minutes. Before I couldn't do a single push-up. Now I can do 5 push-ups. They're seeing objectively their body's improving. Whereas ironically, when you only focus on what your body looks like, it's very hard to see changes for the better. And I'm going to give an example. I'm sure you saw all the shit with Liver King recently, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about it as well.
So did you actually see the emails that he wrote?
I didn't even want to see it, man. I just felt that like it was just such bullshit from the beginning that I was like, fuck. I don't want to give him the time, but continue.
You should definitely watch it because number one, Derek from More Plates, More Days, he did an incredible job with the video. But for me, listen, the steroid part, I don't care. I fucking knew that guy was on steroids. If you don't know that guy's on steroids, like you're an idiot, right? Like obviously that guy's on a fuck ton of steroids.
Yeah.
What stuck out to me was the severe body dysmorphia that he clearly has through his emails. Dude, this guy is sending, and I feel bad for him, man. Like the amount of steroids this guy's taking, you don't do that unless you have severe body dysmorphia. You don't do that to your body unless you got real issues. He's sending pictures to these doctors to try and help him with his steroid stack, and he's literally writing out in all caps, my back fat is driving me insane. And you look at these pictures and I'm like, this guy is shredded to the fucking, like to the bone. And he is being driven insane by his non-existent back fat. Like the amount of body dysmorphia that has to be going on, which I feel bad. I feel really bad for that guy, because when people look at him, they see someone who's shredded, who's jacked. They see like a pinnacle physique of what they would like to aspire to. And this guy, when he looks in the mirror, he doesn't see that. When he looks in the mirror, he sees like fat. He sees disgusting. He's not proud of how his body looks. And you can very clearly see it in these emails. And I was like, man, this is the perfect example of like when you focus solely on how your body looks, not everybody, but it's much more difficult to be proud of what you're doing when it's based on like subjectively, how do I look versus objective. Oh, I've gotten stronger. Oh, my blood pressure has gone down. My cholesterol is improving. I can walk faster on the treadmill now. Here, look, I used to walk at a 2. Now I'm walking at a 4. It's like, these are clear objective improvements that people really start to love what they're doing, because the focus has been shifted from what my fucking pec separation is to actually like, oh, look, no, I can actually do better. I'm literally improving. I can see it. It's clear. It's obvious no matter what. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course, man. Of course. I resonate with that a lot because even my parents, like even my father, when he was kind of coming out of his career, like 60 years old, you know, someone who just worked like all his life. He was getting into the gym, slowly moving up from 2 to 3 to 4 on a treadmill, was now telling me that he's able to be on a treadmill for 15 to 20 minutes. And then he's picking up any weight and lifting it just because he's like trying to like fix that kind of process. Fundamentally, he's at the age whereby he's just learning this on the go and he really enjoyed the process. And he's been doing it for years as a result. And I think that even that interaction for me was quite interesting because your point, he's happy to go from 0 to 1 and just be on the treadmill and improving. And he didn't do it for 55 years of his life. And now at 55, going on to 60, he was able to do it really well. That's to me is more admirable than the Liver King getting 24-inch biceps,
Correct.
and like
100%.
it's just like it's apples and oranges. That's why I didn't give him much time when it came out, because I was like, I didn't realize the kind of disorder side of things, because that of course is huge and it's a massive part of it. But it's kind of like maybe he was doing it to himself to try to get to that stage because he was always chasing that validation, external validation, and that's the most extreme nuanced case, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I haven't made a public post about him, and I'm not going to. A lot of people in the industry are doing it. They're like trying to, fuck
Yeah.
the Liver King, expose, blah, blah, blah. I don't like that. I think it's cheap, easy content to try and get clicks and views.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I also think people are throwing stones from glass houses, right? I think like a lot of people have, made big mistakes. They've lied, they've fucked up, but they've got shit in their closet that they're not showing anybody. It's like
Yeah.
Liver King, like he's gotten such a big audience. Like, cool, he was exposed. I think we're all human. We all fuck up. We all make mistakes. So I'm not going to try and tear him down. But I was looking for people to bring that up, and I've thought about making content around it. I don't think I will, just because like he's already gotten enough shit. I don't want to bring more on him. But it was such an interesting part of the emails to me that I haven't seen anyone discuss. Like this guy with such an outrageously incredible physique doesn't like how he looks. Like, why isn't that being talked about? Why isn't that being talked about?
The angle you're taking on it is more for helping other people, because like that's a revelation that I would not have ever thought of as well. So that's definitely helpful for other people. It's not
Yeah.
like you're just trying to get clicks and views. That's the contrast.
Yeah. It's an interesting situation for sure. But
How have you seen kind of? Sorry, a better way to phrase it is: do you think kind of eating disorders and this kind of more fear of food has blown up in recent years, possibly due to social media and a lot of this online kind of space? Or do you think it's always been kind of nested and put away? Because for me, like for younger people, it seems to be getting younger, and there's more people getting more involved with this stuff and having negative side effects as a result, nutrition wise, more in particular.
it's a great question. And I think there's a little bit to both sides, right? So for example, I mean, the vast majority of my clients are women, like anywhere between like 25 to 75, but a large majority between like 40 to 65 is a huge portion of my clients. Okay. And most of these women had serious issues with eating long before social media ever existed, but it wasn't something that was really spoken about. And it was often something that was sort of just like under the rug. People wouldn't really talk about it. I think now younger girls and younger everybody. Listen, I struggled with binge eating, anorexia, bulimia as a result of wrestling as well. So it's not just for women, but I think younger people are being exposed to this stuff earlier on because of social media. So I think it is starting to happen at a younger age for sure. But I also think, so on one hand, yes, I think it's happening, but I also think there's more open discussion around it. So I think there are some people who are, editing their pictures and discussing crazy, ridiculous diets out in the open that are just like causing real disordered eating habits. But then again, I actually have it open on my phone somewhere. Someone sent me this diet from like the 1940s where it was like you eat one egg and have some alcohol, and like it was one of the most ridiculous diets, and it was published in a book. And I know that there were mothers who were reading this, that, okay, this is my diet I'm going to do. And then their like 12-year-old daughter would see it, and then they would do it too. Right. Like I know for a fact this must have happened in like 1940s, 50s, 60s, whatever. So I think now it's it's more accessible to everybody. So on one hand, these like really shitty diets, crash diets, starvation diets are more accessible, but they're also exposed more because, for example, we look at like the Kardashians and blah, 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 blah. When they post stupid bullshit like detox teas or whatever, when you go in the comment section, it's all people being like, what the fuck are you promoting? This is nonsense. This is dangerous. This is bad. Whereas that wasn't possible before. Before there was a commercial or a book and you just saw the commercial or you got the book and you didn't see the reviews. You had no idea. Like people didn't know what was going on. So there's pros and cons. I think there's, there's give and takes. Like, yes, people are exposed to it more, but there's also more exposure of the nonsense as well.
It's such a strange one with diet as well, because when you've all these fast fad like diets and stuff, they're so unsustainable that it's not like you were able to do it anyway. And the carnivore diet is a very good example. Like, to be at that level of just like the density of the food, forget the profile of how it breaks down, whatever. For like a male or even for a female, there's so much like density in it that it's very difficult to see how anyone could keep it up for long term. So I know you get into the details of all these kind of diets in particular, but as a result, okay, what would be your solution to this? Like, what is the solution you think to, if you weren't to do all these fast fat diets, do you just set up a decent profile, macros and calories that you abide by, and then do you recommend that for the 40 to 65-year-olds for a longer period?
So the question is like, what dietary, like, what do I recommend for most people?
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to move away from, anything you see in the media, like all that kind of bullshit.
Yeah. So there's a lot, and I don't think there is a one size fits all. I would say number one is I would start with the lowest hanging fruit, which is
Mhm.
if we're talking about, if I try and look at things from a global perspective, right? So we've got a global epidemic of people being severely overweight, right? That's a big
Yeah.
fucking problem. So clearly the biggest issue right now is there's an overconsumption of energy, overconsumption of calories issue. So for
Yeah.
me, my mind goes to how do we get people to eat a more appropriate amount of food? So that's number one is there's overconsumption of energy. So what do we do? My mind goes to first thing is let's start with writing everything you eat down on a piece of paper. That's like my number one first recommendation because a lot of people, not in the bodybuilding community, but like for brand new people who are just starting out, you tell them to count calories and they're like, absolutely not. Like, no way. They don't want to do it. They're like, I'm not a numbers person. I don't want to do that. And when I was a younger coach, I used to get mad and be like, all right, well, if you don't want to do it, then you clearly don't want this bad enough. Da, 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 da. Because it's really not that big of a deal, but they make it out to be a big deal in their head. So I was like, okay, how can I get them to do this in steps? So I started like, cool, you don't need to count calories, but for the next 7 days, just write down everything you eat on a piece of paper, right? Everything you eat.
Mhm.
So do it by day. I don't care if it's a glass of water. I don't care if it's a fucking crouton, but I want to know everything that you eat. Just write it down. And they're like, okay, fine, I can do that. So they write it down for 7 days and they send me a picture every day of what it is. And so then I'll go through and like, cool. So they wrote down, they had 12 Oreos. I'm like, cool. So then I'll reply like, cool. Do you know how many calories are in those 12 Oreos? They're like, no. I'm like, let's Google it. So then they Google it. And after the fact, they are now counting their calories. So they Google, oh, 12 Oreos. Da, da, da. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that was like, I don't know, 700 calories, whatever it is. Like, I didn't realize that. So now they're getting the knowledge. Now they're counting calories. And then, okay, cool. How many calories was this, was your chicken breast? I don't know. Well, cool. Google how many calories in like a 6-ounce chicken breast. They Google it. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. And how much protein was that? So then now they've already got all the food written down. And next to the food, they can start writing how many calories it was. And so now they can be a little bit more aware. So that first week, a lot of coaches would look at that as a failure because they're not counting their calories. It's like, no, this is just the first step. They write everything down. It's already written down. Then, I don't know, pick one of the foods, see how many calories it was. Go Google it. Fine. You don't have to count every single thing, but pick one of them and see how many calories it was. Now they have more knowledge and they're more aware. Okay, you know what? Maybe instead of 12 Oreos, I'm gonna have 4, right? Or whatever it is. Or maybe, like, oh, wow, like, I didn't realize that I only had 26 grams of protein because like I ate all this other shit. So, okay, cool. So, you know what? I'm going to have a bigger portion of chicken breast at my next meal. And now, so for me, the first thing is write everything down and then slowly start to figure out how much energy and how much protein you're taking in. And then we can start adding things in from there. I think for the like 90% of people, this would be an amazing first step.
Of course, that it's quite strange, of course, from being in the bodybuilding space to think that people don't know that. It's just, it's the curse of granted knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
what happens with it. Did you ever think about that as well when you were coaching people in the beginning that, oh, like this shit is obvious to me, but it's about teaching someone step one on the ladder, you know? That's a challenge with a lot of this stuff for people.
Yeah, so there's an amazing book by Chip and Dan Heath. Two of my favorite authors ever. They have amazing, amazing books that are all very science based. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Um,
Mhm,
it's I encourage every coach and every content creator to get this book. It's called Made to Stick. Amazing, amazing book. And I read it the first time, and I was in my young 20s, early coach, and they spoke about what you just said, the curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge being like when you become an expert in something, you forget what it's like to be a beginner.
mhm,
And once I read that book, my content changed completely. I went from, making things very advanced and very complex to like the most basic, the most simple, straightforward. And it's funny because that's what I become most well known for. I haven't
mhm.
become well known for any of my, powerlifting records or anything. I've become known for being the guy that makes complex topics very simple. That's it. And very easily applicable to the vast majority of people. I don't try and impress other coaches by using fancy words, by talking about the Krebs cycle or insulin sensitivity. No, I talk about the most simple, basic shit. And I make it as easy as possible. And
Mhm.
that way, because dude, I don't care what other coaches think of me. I don't give a shit what other coaches, they're not going to buy my programs. Ironically, since I've made things super basic, they do buy my programs. It's so funny. Like now coaches are a significant percentage of my clients, not because they're learning anything. I think more just because they want to see how I do it from a business perspective. But like
Mhm.
the curse of knowledge is when you forget what it's like to be a beginner, and then you forget how difficult it can be, the obstacles you have to overcome. And so Made to Stick for me was a life-changing book, as a life-changing text that really helped me understand how to make better content for the people who really needed it.
Yeah, that's a huge part of your work, man. I think it's why it's done so well. You know, how you've amassed so much of a big following is because you're breaking this down very simply. Even your threads are written really clearly, very simple. You don't go into the nuance, which I think a lot of people will get so caught up on. But there's a percentage of people, like Jeff Nippard, for instance, I would go to his content to
Yep.
realize like why is my chest not growing anymore? And we'll go
Yeah.
through all of this, and I need to sit down 35 minutes, and I'm like, oh, okay. Whatever, I go and try and make an assessment. But for the vast majority of people, they're just trying to get up and running, and they don't understand. Like, there's probably a real poor level of education generally around nutrition and probably training, which we're going to talk about as well, in terms of the basics we require. And I think from a very early age, that could have been fixed very, very simply, you know?
Yeah, and Jeff's content is some of the best in the world. I mean, Jeff is extraordinary, and I love his content. I think there's actually a pretty significant crossover in our clientele. Um, what's interesting about Jeff's content is it takes very complex topics, even high level research, and breaks it down very simply. Um, I found that the clients of mine that cross over with him are people who actually really enjoy training and are like, they want to learn more, right? They
Mhm,
want to understand the why. So I do have a probably like a maybe 30% of my clientele is like that type of, they want to know why. The vast majority of my clientele though, they don't give a shit. They don't want to know why. They're like, tell me what the fuck to do and I'll do it.
mhm.
Give me the
Yeah,
program and I'll do it. Tell me how many calories I should eat and I'll do it. I don't want to know why. I don't give a shit. I've got a family, I've got a job, I want others. Like if I wanted to know, I'd have went to school for this. It's like,
yeah.
so it's sort of like if I don't know, like if I hire a financial advisor, right, for my investments,
Mhm,
to be very honest with you, I don't care why certain stocks do better than others. I don't want to spend the time to learn the investment. I don't care. I just want to pay someone a
mhm,
percentage of my investments so that they can tell me exactly where to put my money. That's it. I don't want to know this shit. I don't want to. I don't care. I'm
mhm,
just going to pay you a small percentage, and then you put my money wherever you think it's going to do best. And then I can watch over the next 10 years to see how it's doing. And if it's doing well, then I'll keep paying you and you'll get like
mhm.
3%. but I don't give a shit about knowing why. Like, I don't care. It's the
Of course,
same thing
man.
with fitness.
Yeah, definitely, man. 100%. There will be again the 1% of people who want to know more, like why are you
Yeah.
picking these stocks over whatever, and that's perfectly fine. You can provide that value, but you don't necessarily need to, and that's the beauty of it. Say, even with my coach, like he's a high level bodybuilder, like I don't need to know different things around my digestion, but I will lean in from time to time, but I don't necessarily need to know the mechanics. But he's like, okay, you need to cut this back or pull this forward or increase your water for this week or whatever. So there's different kind of nuances around it. And I think that's what's interesting as well about cardio, because I know you write a lot about cardio as well. And the lowest hanging fruit is just getting your steps in. But there's a funny thing with cardio is that, everyone's like 10,000 steps, but I don't know the mechanics behind it, but I remember that was a marketing play, wasn't it,
Yes.
originally, who said the 10,000 steps. But even if it is a marketing play, it's still a pretty good target as a fake fucking marketing play at the time. So for a lot of people, there's probably a better figure. There's probably something that's more representative. But how do you find, even with your own clients, like getting them to do the first shift of cardio, trying to get to the 7,500 steps or whatever it is?
Yeah. So you're 100% right. The 10,000 steps originally came from a marketing campaign out of Japan during the Olympics in Japan. Um, to be very honest with you, like, what an amazing marketing campaign to try and get your population healthier. Right? It's
Yeah.
like we don't see that in America. Like, we don't see a marketing campaign like to like a nationwide marketing campaign to get people moving. Like,
Mhm.
that's like the most amazing thing that I've ever heard. It's like, hey, great. Yeah, they're selling a pedometer out of it. They're going to make money from the pedometer, but it's like
Mhm.
fucking awesome. This is like the best thing you can do for your health. I love this marketing campaign. Um, Generally speaking, research shows that 7,500 seems to be like the minimum for the maximum result or the maximum health
Mhm.
benefit. There is research showing that for older women, usually like above like 65, 70, that they could reach that peak around like a 5,000 steps, 4 to 5,000 steps. But generally speaking, more is better. Almost
Yeah.
always. There is a point of diminishing returns. And I think the point of diminishing returns really comes from a point of, at what point is getting more steps taking away from other aspects of your life, right? So
Mhm.
so at what point is getting more steps taking away from family time, taking away from maybe some you could be spent with your child or with your spouse or with your friends. Like, there are some people who, like, I get 20,000 steps every day. And when I was single and living in New York City, I could get 20,000 steps a day, no problem. That was fucking
Yeah.
easy. But, now wife, kid, not living in the city, like, it's that would take up hours of my day extra in order to get that. So that would not be worthwhile. 7,500 is the minimum I tend to shoot for with my clients. If I shoot a range of 7,500 to 10,000 per day, there was a fantastic new study that came out recently that found the most unbelievable health benefits of up to 16,000 steps a day. Like, it was fucking insane. What's really cool about walking is that, and I don't know the exact multiplier, but the benefits of walking are, you get more benefits from walking than you get negative uh, effects from smoking. So walking is better for your health than smoking is bad for your health, which is like so crazy to think about from the perspective of, if you look at like some of the longest living populations in the world, like
Mhm.
they're not bodybuilders, they're not powerlifters, they're not
Mhm.
professional athletes. They walk, and actually, they often drink a moderate amount of alcohol. They drink a fair bit, and many of
Mhm.
them smoke. But what are they doing when they're smoking? They're out walking. They're out, like, they're walking. They're like having a smoke, like, while they're enjoying and socializing. Um,
Socializing, yeah.
the longest living populations
Mhm.
are not, the CEOs, the hustlers and grinders. It's people who they work to live. They don't live to work. And they
Mhm.
just walk a fair amount. They spend their days, they relax. Like, it's a much more relaxed lifestyle, but they walk a lot. So for me, that's just like, it's the most amazing thing, because walking is the lowest hanging fruit. And
Mhm.
generally speaking, if I can get my clients to shoot for between 7,500 to 10,000 steps a day, that's a great consistent metric to shoot for.
That's wild, because I saw in your post it was Hong Kong was a top country, which is strange
Mhm.
because like I'm living in Singapore, and Singapore and Hong Kong are quite similar in terms of like density, like quite dense. There's not
Yep.
that much space. But in Singapore, anyway, a lot of people cycle and they walk as well. They don't have huge muscle mass, but they would just be relatively fit. And some of them do smoke, some of them eat out. But then that's why it was an interesting thing, because there's so much different things at play. They're very social. There's lots of like social interaction and whatnot, but people are constantly moving. Whereas if you compare that to America, like when I go to visit my family, I'll be living similar to yourself outside the city. I won't be walking, and it's wild. Like I do 10,000, 12,000 steps here naturally without
Yeah.
any much of a pain. Did you see any studies around like the benefits of walking? So like the clarity, the logical reasoning, like kind of breaking down those different aspects, but some of it getting negated, I guess, or not really working if you're on your phone, or let's say you're doing things that are kind of clouding you relaxing, let's say, because there's a big kind of argument online of like, oh, no digital, nothing involved in your hand or whatever when you're walking. And the other aspect then is saying, oh, well, you're still getting your exercise in, it's still helping your brain and your recovery.
Man, that's so interesting. People always have to make shit up to there's always nonsense. Listen, like here's the deal. I think being like this with your phone in your face and like going in like social media comment sections and getting in debates with people, I think that's very bad for your health. I don't think that the added stress of arguing with people that you don't know and you'll never meet about shit that you're not going to convince them otherwise, I don't think that's good for your health, period. So whether you do that sitting or walking, I don't think it's good for your health either way. But if you're going to do it, I'd rather you do it walking, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
for me, when I'm doing cardio and getting my steps in, I'll often like watch a movie or something. Like I'll watch a movie or I'll watch a TV show. That's a cool way for me to just sort of let the time pass and enjoy something. But yeah, I think that's people missing the forest for the trees on that one. Like I think
Mhm.
period, being here all day is not good for you. Like being with your phone to your face. I don't think it's a good life strategy. And by the way, that's coming from someone who's here all day. Like this is
Of
what I
course.
do almost all day. Like it's part of my job right now. And eventually I want to get to a point where I never have to open social media again. I want to get to a point where
Mhm.
I don't open it. I don't look at my phone. Like I want to get to a point where I can have a flip phone again. I don't want a fucking smartphone. Like it's funny when I first started, not when I first started, several years after I started my business, my goal was to not have to be on my computer, like to not have to use my computer and not write emails. Thank God, what a blessing. I don't have to do that anymore. I only am on my computer when I do podcasts, but otherwise, like I'm not on my computer doing emails and all that shit. The vast majority of my work now is just on my phone. So when I travel, it was a big deal when I was first able to travel without my computer and I could only bring my phone. Because for years,
Mhm.
I had to bring my computer with me everywhere in order to do my work. Now I can just do it on my phone because I'm not answering emails and stuff like that. Now my next goal is just get a flip phone. Like I think
That
my
would be
next
sick.
over like 5 to 7 years, no smartphone, just flip phone. That for me would be the next level of success.
Man, that is so sick, because I'm very similar to yourself now in the beginning. Like I have my laptop everywhere because I'm either
Yeah,
recording, editing, uploading, whatever. And the first time I didn't do it in 2 years was last week when I was in Thailand.
dude,
It's because I was
congrats.
I was
That's
I was
awesome.
too well, I was too afraid my laptop would get robbed. But there's also that aspect. But it was and I actually had to think about that one. I was like, oh my god, like I went to Ibiza, I've been in the Philippines with a laptop, I've been all across like Europe with a laptop, and it's like you're in the airport and you're never off, which is
Ever. Yeah.
and maybe it's good for your productivity, maybe it's good for your business, whatever, because you can lean into it and you don't get bored, and maybe you do have like a purpose you're working towards. But I was like, damn, does that get tiring sometimes as well, though?
Yeah, and it's like, you're carrying a fucking heavy laptop in your bag. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to have to worry about it. I don't want to have to get on the plane and bring my laptop out. I remember when I first started not traveling with my laptop and I only had my phone, I was just like, this is the best. Like I was so
Mhm.
happy that I didn't have to carry it around anymore. For me, I actually ended up I answering emails became a huge source of stress for me. Um, and like because and listen, I'm blessed beyond measure in so many ways. And I remember when I first made my first ever business email, I used to sit at my computer in my college dorm and hit refresh, hoping someone would email me and ask me a question. I wanted people to email me. And then over the years and years and years, it got to a point where I was getting hundreds of emails a day, sometimes thousands. And like I would clear my inbox. I would abuse Adderall. I would stay up and work, and like I would clear my inbox. It'd be like 3 a.m. Finally cleared it, got it down to 0, closed it, went to bed, opened it, and I had like 700 emails, and I'd be like, fuck. Like it was so stressful to me. So I finally got to a point where I got an amazing assistant. Her name is Kat, an incredible co-coach. Her name is Susan, and I don't answer emails anymore. Like I don't do it because like it was fucking killing me. So for me to get to that point was a many years in the making, but I was like, if I have to answer another email, if I have to log into my Gmail, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. So for me to get to that point where I don't have to carry my computer around, that was a big success. So from now, the next goal is flip phone. Once I get to a flip phone, I'll be pretty stoked.
That's pretty wild as well because the online business, like especially for online coaches, there's so much touch points with clients because the goal is obviously more clients. So the more clients you
Yep.
have, it's almost as if it's not scalable. I know the process and systems you build are quite scalable, but it's very difficult because you want it to be personalized. How was
Yeah.
that for you when you were working with Gary Vaynerchuk? Because you were traveling very frequently, which is probably the most unscalable thing I've ever heard in my life. Why
Bro.
was it that you were always traveling though? I didn't. Sorry, like why did you have to be there to travel? Could you not have
So
operated online? Like,
I'll tell you a story. So the deal with Gary was coaching him 7 days a week. It was a
yeah,
3-year deal. So June 1, 2016 and June 1, 2019. It was a handshake
so
deal.
Gary to do a contract.
Yeah, it just shook his hand. It was like a spit in your hand type deal. There was no written contract, but shake his hand, and it was every day, 7 days a week, no weekends, no vacations, no breaks, no nothing, every day. And I vividly remember this. I think it was actually my first or second day on the job. Keep in mind, I'm scared shitless, petrified. I just moved from Israel to New York City to coach Gary Vaynerchuk. I couldn't believe I had the job. And I was told that Gary was going to Denver and we were living in New York. And I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't know how I was going to, like, I didn't go to Denver because no one gave me a ticket. No one like told me where to go or when to be there. So I just didn't go. And so he texts me. I think this is my second day. He texts me and he says, "Where are you?" He's in Denver at the hotel. It's like 7 a.m. And I say, "I'm in New York." And he said, "Why aren't you here?" And I was like,
Oh
"I
my
didn't know if
god.
I was supposed to go with you. Like, no one gave me a ticket." He's like, "You're supposed to buy the ticket yourself and I'll reimburse you and all this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. But like, you're supposed to look at the schedule." I had access to his Google Calendar. "You look at my calendar, you see where I'm going to be, you book your flights, you be there, and you meet me at that hotel gym in the morning." And like, I'm just supposed to do that. And I was like, I had no idea. So I said, "Okay, I'm number one, I'm really sorry. I had no idea. Number two, let's do the workout on FaceTime." And he responds, "Ha ha 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 ha." Like the longest laugh I've ever seen in text. And I was like, "What?" He was like, "No." He's like, "This job is you're supposed to be here with me." He's like, "I'm not doing that." He's like, because Gary hates working out. He fucking hates it. He's like, basically, if I'm not there, he's going to use that as like, I'm just not going to do it. So he laughed and said, "Nope, not working out today. Your fault. Get back on," like, whatever it is. So we didn't work out that day. And after that, I didn't miss a single workout. But basically, Gary travels all over the world all the time for his job. So if he was in Hong Kong, I was in Hong Kong. If he was in LA, I was in LA. If he was in Amsterdam, then I was in Amsterdam. Wherever he was, I was. We went to Ireland. I remember one time we went from New York to Ireland. We were in Ireland for 8 hours. We went from New York to Ireland. We got off the plane. It was like 7 a.m. We drove to the hotel. He took like a 2-hour nap. During that nap, D-Rock, his videographer, and I got a Guinness at the hotel. We were so excited at like 7 a.m. to get a Guinness. Then I coached Gary. And then after that, he had a speaking event. And then we flew to Germany and we were there for like 2 days. And then from Germany, we flew back to New York. We were in New York for 1 day. Then from New York, we flew to LA for another 2 days. Like, this is how life was all the time, which is why I got fat and out of shape and my blood pressure was super high. It was awful. But yeah, I was traveling with him all the time. Not to mention I had about 80 one-on-one clients online. And
Oh my God.
I also was building my inner circle, and I was also posting on Instagram 3 times a day. I had also started a podcast. I was trying to post on YouTube. Like I was abusing Adderall so I wouldn't have to sleep so that I could do more, which just destroyed my health. And I don't recommend it, but I try, I want to tell the truth. Like I was taking an unbelievable amount of Adderall in order to work as much as I possibly could and to stay awake and to get all of it done.
That is absolutely wild. And like when you were working, how many hours were you working then? Like, was it even when you were working with Gary, were you very involved with it at the time? Like, were you
Yeah, so
100%?
it was an hour coaching him every day. But you have to remember, an hour of coaching him is not just an hour. It's like
Yeah.
it was let's say workout started at 6 a.m. I woke up at 5:30, out the door by no, woke up at like 5:15, out the door by 5:30, because then I had at least a 20-minute drive all the way up to his apartment. I had to be there a little bit early. We work out 6 to 7. Then I had another, 20 to 30-minute drive back to my apartment. So that's easily 2 hours right there. But then bring him a protein shake throughout the day, get him his meals, whatever it is. So that's why like I wasn't able to do any podcast or stuff during the day, because if he texted me, he said, I need you, I'd have to leave immediately. It's like at
Mm.
any point in time, he needed me, boom, I had to get off the phone. I had to get off what I was doing, go see him, give him a protein shake. If he would often have like 2 or 3 dinners in a row. So what he would do is he would schedule his dinners at a restaurant, and he'd have like 2 or 3 dinners in a row. So he'd have like an hour meeting with each person. And I would just go sit at the bar and like sit there with my computer at the bar and just watch him, because if I wasn't there, then he would get desserts and he would get drinks. And I told him, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't think it's good. And he was like, well, this is why I'm paying you. So you need to be here. So like in his words, he was like, you're my babysitter. He's like, you need to be here. And I'll never forget one time we were in LA and I was sitting at the bar of a sushi restaurant because he was having meetings at the sushi restaurant. And the guy he was having this meeting with, he looks at me and he's like, he says to Gary, he's like, who's that guy? And Gary's like, that's my personal trainer. And Gary like calls me over. He's like super excited. And he's like, hey, this is Jordan. He's my personal trainer. And then he says I'll never forget this. Gary says, because apparently the guy must have had like the green tea ice cream dessert. And Gary goes, you see how he goes, you know how you had that ice cream? He's like, because Jordan was here, I didn't get it. And he was so happy and proud. He was like, I would have had that. He's like, I probably would have had 2 if Jordan wasn't here, but because Jordan's here, I didn't have it. And he was so excited. And I was like, this is ridiculous, man.
That is wild, man. Was he making genuine progress with all the flights, all the like however long he was sleeping, like everything we were talking about their last for hour? Could he do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So the reason that I got the job is because Gary was in pain. Gary was in real pain with his
Yeah.
back. His back would go out a couple times a year, every year since he was 18, to the point where every time his back would go out, he would be out for a couple of weeks. Like it was devastating back issues, hip issues. The first thing he said to me was, when I actually went for the interview, he pointed to his knee and he said he had like the worst, not his knee, his hip. He's like, I have the worst hip pain you can ever imagine. He's like, if you and I work together and you can get rid of this hip pain over 3 years, it'll be worth it. Within 3 months, the hip pain was gone. Within 6 months, his back was cleared up. His back has not gone out ever since that time. So I started working with him. He almost had shoulder surgery. He had big shoulder issues. We worked on that. So the pain was the first thing. And he's no longer in pain, which is for me the biggest win. From there, like he got way stronger, dude. He's dumbbell rowing 75 pounds for 8 reps right now per arm with good technique. It's like the dude's fucking strong. Like he's a fucking strong dude. So I think with the lack of sleep that he's getting for his age, for his stress level, I kept my buddy Mike and I, who's his coach now, keep trying to get him to get his testosterone checked, but he doesn't want to get it checked. He's like, I'm not going on hormones. I'm not doing it. He just doesn't want to do it. But I was like, I would imagine, I couldn't imagine his very high level of testosterone based on the lack of sleep, the amount of work, the amount of stress, all that stuff, and his age. He's in his mid 40s now. I'm thinking for the amount of sleep that he gets, for the amount of work that he does, for the amount of stress that he has, for his age, his progress was unfucking believable.
What do you put it down to?
Consistency. Like it was 7 days a week, and that was by design. And at first I disagreed with it, but after doing it for 3 years, it made sense because his schedule is so crazy. I said to him, I was like, you don't need to train 7 days a week. I was like, let's just do it 3 or 4 days a week. And he said, no, no, no. He's like, we have to meet every day because, based on travel, based on stuff, like there will be times when I'm not able to actually get a good workout in, but at least we can meet and we can do mobility work or we can do cardio. We can do something because he's like, it needs to be something on my calendar every day, just like brushing my teeth or taking a shower. Because when it's every single day, you have much more flexibility with what you do on any given day. But when you only have like 3 or 4 days scheduled, and then maybe you have to miss that day or whatever it is, it's easy for the rest of the week to go to shit. So when it's every day, no matter what, you have much more flexibility. And he was ruthlessly consistent with it. It didn't matter if he only slept 2 hours. It didn't matter if we were traveling. Like, we worked out every single day. And sometimes the workouts were just foam rolling and stretching. Other times the workouts were just getting his steps in. Other times the workouts were legit, real high level strength workouts. But he did movement every single day.
That is absolutely wild. I love that as well, because you could take someone that's so successful in the business world, you apply those principles in a fitness and a health sense, and it just works, doesn't it? There's
Yeah.
no magic bullet. There's no magic
That's
bullet,
it.
you know?
That's it.
That is awesome, man. How do you think your life would be different if you didn't coach him? Do you think it would be vastly different, or do you think you'd be at the same level?
It would be vastly different. So when I started coaching him, I had an online business. I had like 80 clients
Yeah.
one-on-one. I started my online business in 2011. The only reason I got the job coaching Gary in 2016 is because Mike Vacanti, his coach, found my website in 2012. From an article about
2012.
actually in 2012. So, and Mike actually left a comment on that article in 2012, and I replied to it and answered his question. That's why I got the job coaching Gary, because Mike followed me for 4 years after that. So I had a successful business. I had like 80 one-on-one clients, and I had my membership. It was early in those stages, but I was living in Israel, and dude, I was chilling. I had an apartment on the beach. I was like, I worked a couple hours a day, client work, got my workouts in, and the rest of the time I was living a very relaxed life. It was wonderful. It was amazing. But dude, I was just chilling. And I very much believe if I didn't work with Gary, I would not have gone hard on social media, and I would have I would have stayed in Israel. I probably would have, I would have stayed in Israel. Like that would have been it. My life would be dramatically different, for better or worse. I can't say. I'm very happy with what I have now, and I'm very blessed. But I will say I think those 3 years are absolutely worth it, and I'm so glad and happy and blessed that it happened. But my life would be nowhere near the same. Like nowhere near the same. I would probably
Was
have
there
a
ever?
flip phone.
You probably have what?
I'd probably have a flip phone. I probably would not
You
be on
probably have
social
fifth
media at
phone.
all. Yeah.
Was there ever a stage where you weren't going to take it, like before you were given the offer?
There was never a stage I wasn't going to take it. There was a stage within the first I almost quit 3 times in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
I had never worked for anybody else. Everything I had ever done had just been for me. And then going from only working for myself to then having this full-time 7 days a week, dude, it was the most crazy job you could ever imagine. Like, I almost quit 3 times. I had real issues. I spoke to his assistant, Ty, just every day, and he helped me through a lot of bad times. I was like, bro, I'm really struggling. So I almost quit 3 times, and I'm very glad I didn't. But no, from the moment I found out, the first thing I did is I cried, and I called my mom, and I told my mom, because we really struggled with money growing up, and like money was always an issue. I called my mom and I said, Mom, we're never going to have to worry about money ever again. And she like didn't understand it. She was like, what's going on? And I said, I got this job coaching Gary Vaynerchuk. And she didn't know who Gary was. She's like, who the fuck is
Of
that?
course.
And I said, Mom, imagine Oprah Winfrey hired me to be her personal trainer. And she screamed, and she was so excited because like I didn't know how else, like who she would resonate with. But I was
Yeah.
like, it's like Oprah just hired me to be her personal trainer. And so that was it. Yeah.
That is wild, man. Jordan, I'd like to say a massive thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Like, I really enjoyed the chat. This was an awesome session, and we'll do many more in the future, man. Once you come
Likewise,
out with
man.
your new, of course. Where can people find your stuff? Of course. Lastly, before we wrap up.
Yeah, if you Google my name, Jordan Syatt, you'll find on social media, all the podcasts, all that stuff.
Legend, man. Thank you so much.